Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you all very much for joining us today. I'll introduce myself. My name is Alyssa Kelly. I'm the Research and Challenge Manager at Foresight Canada. I'm joined by quite a few colleagues who will get to introduce themselves shortly. But today we're very excited to talk about one of our newest SDG Connect challenges run in partnership with the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service offices in Argentina and Latin America and the Caribbean, and Tenaris, a leading manufacturer of pipes and related services for the energy industry and other industrial applications. Tenaris is looking for Canadian innovation to find a solution that allows for an alternative use of scrap shredder fluff that will avoid landfill disposal. So we'll talk about this in detail shortly, but I'll first give a brief introduction to Foresight Canada and the SDG Connect Challenge service. I'll then hand it over to our partners, the Trade Commissioner Service, to introduce themselves. And then we'll hear from Tenaris to tell us more about their company and introduce the challenge. And afterwards, finally, we'll open it up to the audience for some questions. And on that note, you can type your questions at any point during the webinar into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can also raise your hand during the Q&A period to ask your question in person using the raise hand function that is under reactions at the bottom of your screen. I should note this webinar will be recorded and shared at the request of those who are interested. And interpretation is also available during this webinar for Spanish to English. You can enable this feature by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen that says interpretation. A bit about Foresight. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are Canada's clean tech ecosystem accelerator. We bring partners together to identify, commercialize, and adopt clean technologies. And Foresight's programs and services focus on 5 areas of opportunity. We run accelerator programs, helping innovators and ventures grow. We host innovation challenges such as this one, matching industry with clean tech solutions. We conduct research to build sector knowledge with market intelligence, industry roadmaps, and collecting data. We build strategic partnerships to up innovation capacity. And we also build clusters to bring ecosystems together for collaboration. Here's a few of our metrics here. We've supported over 700 SMEs since 2015, supported over 6,400 green jobs, and run 30 open challenges and counting. And we're very pleased to be offering the SDG Connect Challenge service. We connect international businesses who are looking to reach their sustainable development goals to Canadian companies with clean tech solutions through open innovation challenges. And this is all done in an efficient, affordable, and low carbon way because it's all virtual. And now I will pass it over to our colleagues at the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service to introduce themselves and tell us a bit about their programming. So Juan Pablo, please take it away.
Thank you, Elisa. And as you said, welcome everyone to this session where we want to connect Canadian companies with Tenaris in Argentina. For the people who are just joining us, we have also interpretation services available. So you can use in the bottom right corner of your screen, you can find the interpretation globe, where you can find the option to listen the whole presentation in English, as we have some Spanish-speaking presenters. So about the Trade Commissioner Service, I'm here with my colleague Anna Fisher from the Embassy in Buenos Aires. And some of you may be familiar with what we do. For the ones who don't, I'm going to go over a very brief overview of the services, some numbers, and what we can, what we're seeing in Argentina and how you can reach out to us. Next slide, please. So in general terms, the Trade Commissioner Service offer is the network of more than 160 offices around the world. We have the local networks, market intelligence, problem solving. We do connections and introductions. We also provide some funding. We're not going to go over a lot of detail about the kinds of funding, but the main funding source for Canadian exporters from the Trade Commissioner Service is the Can Export program. And we have some special programs for business support, like the Canadian Clean Technology, or in general Technology Accelerator, trade missions and events around the world, and also inclusive trade and development programs. Next slide, please. In terms of numbers, there are some figures that you can consult, and what supports us helping Canadian companies abroad. So feel free to reach out at any time if you want to be part of the Canadian companies that use our services, so that we can support your success internationally. Next slide, please. In terms of the specific services that the Trade Commissioner provides, we have 4 core services. The first one is, as I said, market intelligence and making sure that your company has a good fit with the market and the opportunities. We also make introductions with key contacts, with qualified contacts. We also support Canadian companies finding opportunities and leads. And finally, we also help when any problem arises in the international markets where you are trying to export. As a result of our services, Canadian companies are able to expand to more markets and to do it reducing risks and costs. So I'd like to introduce again my colleague from Buenos Aires, Ana Fischer. She's going to give us a very brief overview of the clean tech sector in Argentina. Ana.
Thank you very much, Juan Pablo. Can you hear me well? Yes. So as Juan Pablo said, I'm based in Buenos Aires. My name is Ana Fischer, and I'm responsible of promoting Canadian clean tech, clean technologies and solutions in Argentina and in Paraguay. So I'll try to give a very, very, very brief overview of how is clean tech, what are the trends of clean tech in Argentina with one slide. So as you may know, Argentina is the second largest country and economy in South America, right after Brazil. And as Canada, the country has a great geographic diversity and a significant natural resource endowment. The energy, mining, and agriculture sectors are the key pillars of the economy, as they provide much needed export revenues to the country. The country has an important industrial base, accounting for 17% of its GDP, down from 20% 10 years ago. It has very important firms in food and beverage, pharmaceutical, glass, pulp and paper, textile, tanneries, metallurgy, automotive, petrochemical, mining sectors. It's very diverse, and those are large, but also a lot of SMEs. Certainly with such an industrial footprint, the potential for clean tech solutions is high. Nevertheless, the opportunities for clean tech companies are currently limited by Argentina's economic crisis, ongoing since 2018, its macroeconomic and political uncertainty, currency control measures, and the lack of competitive financing options in the market due to the outstanding debt with the IMF, which is currently under renegotiation. Another limit to investments in the clean tech sector in Argentina are the uneven environmental controls and enforcement, and the lack of a COVID-19 and economic recovery, green recovery plan. Clean tech solutions are being applied with success within specific industries and multinationals with sustainability corporate mandates, such as Tenaris, and where the deployment of new technology brings increased efficiencies and help reduce operational expenditures. It's clearly an economic driver or an economic equation, and the return on investment must be short. The clean energy sector in Argentina has great natural advantages with great solar, wind, and biomass resources. green hydrogen production potential, and very unique lithium resources. Over the past 5 years, we have seen an important increase of the share of renewable energy in the electricity matrix, which is now 10% of the total and should reach by law 20% in 2025. Argentina is also a state party to the Paris Agreement on climate change and has committed to net zero emissions by 2050. Nevertheless, we have not seen yet a clear and consensual strategy to reach that target, and we still have to see important pieces of legislation being approved by our Congress. For example, an electromobility bill that aims to take advantage of Argentina's lithium resources and develop its value chain, the much needed regulations around hydrogen production and commercialization. You may have seen or listened to the Australian company Fortescue announcement, huge investment announcement for green hydrogen production in Argentina over the coming years. There are also pending regulations on methane emissions monitoring and mitigation, as well as a much needed extended producer responsibility legislation and other circular economy practices in the market. In the meantime, the country continues to promote shale gas production in the Vaca Muerta and conventional play, let's say as an energy transition fuel. But I will stop here because I could talk for hours. It's very vast, clean tech in Argentina and everywhere. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to further explore the market or have any questions. And I'll give the floor to Alisa or Gabriel now. Thank you.
Well, just before you jump in, Elisa, we wanted to share a little bit more information about how you can reach out to us.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So there you can find the email address of both Anna and I, but also from our regional offices in Canada, who are kind of your first stop when trying to go international or expanding to new markets. So we encourage you to, you can connect with us directly, but we encourage you to reach out to your regional office as well. So yeah, now it's back to Elisa again. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for that. And we will send an email after the webinar to everyone who attended, and we'll include this contact information in there so people can easily reach it. Before I hand it over to Tenaris, I just wanted to give a brief overview of some of the key challenge milestones, some important dates to remember before you hear about the challenge, but we are accepting currently applications until December 17th. Finalists will be notified and will present a pitch presentation during the week of February 14th, and winners will be selected in early March. These dates are subject to change, but this is our, as of now, this is our timeline. And as we mentioned, applications will only be accepted from companies that are Canadian owned or have primary operations in Canada. And without further delay, I will hand it over to Gabriel to share his screen and present the presentation from Tenaris.
Hola, buenas tardes. Primero quería preguntarle si se ve bien.
Yes.
Ok, gracias. Bueno, primero me quiero presentar. Soy Gabriel Magnani, soy responsable de seguridad y ambiente para las plantas de Argentina. En este caso nos están acompañando, bueno, Carolina Bengoechea, que es nuestra directora de Environment, Lorena Moret, que es el manager de Environment, Alejandro Volpini, que es el gerente de la planta de Scrap, Augusto Funes, que es el responsable de operaciones de la planta de Scrap, Manuel Frávega, por la parte de ambiente, y Gastón Flores, que es uno de nuestros líderes de seguridad y ambiente también aquí en la planta. Si bien nuestro desafío en el día de hoy tiene que ver con el procesamiento de chatarra en nuestra planta que se llama Scrap, valga el nombre también, básicamente lo primero que quiero hacerles es una pequeña introducción y comentario de nuestra empresa, Tenaris. Es una empresa multinacional alrededor del mundo, y por ello, básicamente para que la conozcan, y luego nos referiremos al proceso propiamente dicho de scrap. Bien. Tenaris es una empresa con presencia mundial. Tenemos una facturación anual de 5,1 billones de dólares, 19.000 empleados alrededor del mundo, y tenemos presencia con plantas de fabricación en 16 países y en 24 países servicios de distribución o asistencia a nuestros clientes. Luego pueden ver aquí un poquito en el mapa la distribución de todas nuestras plantas productivas, nuestras oficinas comerciales o nuestros centros de despacho y asistencia a nuestros clientes. Tenaris tiene un sistema integrado de calidad, seguridad y medio ambiente. Por ello estamos certificados con las normas ISO 9001 para calidad, 14001 para ambiente y la 45001 para la gestión de seguridad y salud de nuestro personal. Contamos con 5 plantas plantas de fabricación de acero, 14 plantas para fabricación de tubos sin costura y 28 plantas de fabricación de tubos con costura. Lo que hace que en el mercado nos tenemos una producción de 8,5 millones de toneladas de tubos, 4,7 de ellos de simples, 3,8 de tubos soldados. Obviamente con distintas aplicaciones. Somos un liderazgo importante en el mercado de OCTG, de LAMPAI, procesamiento de hidrocarburos, energía, generación de energía, industria mecánica y la industria automotriz. Para ellos tenemos unos fuertes pilares en seguridad y salud de nuestro personal, environment, innovación, fuerte soporte a toda nuestra población, a nuestra comunidad, y trabajamos bajo un fuerte paraguas que tiene que ver con conceptos de ética y governance a lo largo de todas nuestras plantas. Para nosotros la seguridad es la prioridad. Nos basamos en un sistema de 12 reglas básicas, en la cual lo que estamos fortaleciendo es un cambio cultural de todos los niveles de nuestra población. Tenemos mucha gente en distintas plantas, pero obviamente que a pesar, como pueden ver en el gráfico, los números poquito a poco han ido mejorando y estamos a niveles de lo que nos comparamos normalmente con la World Steel en indicadores de este tipo. Fuertemente nosotros tenemos una inversión del orden del 10% de nuestras ventas focalizadas en lo que tiene que ver con actividades de mejora en las instalaciones, todo lo que tenga que ver con seguridad y medio ambiente. Como les dije recién, tenemos algo así como 19.000 empleados alrededor del mundo, y por obviamente la presencia de nuestras plantas productivas, nuestras oficinas comerciales, pueden ver que hay una gran diversidad de cultura y obviamente de distribución de nuestro personal alrededor del mundo. También tenemos una relación muy importante con nuestra comunidad. El año pasado se han invertido 12,7 millones de dólares con ellos. Básicamente casi 50% de esto estuvo, creo que por razones obvias, dedicado a lo que fue COVID, fortaleciendo mucho todas las instituciones de salud, tanto próximas a nuestros lugares de residencia y nuestras plantas, como en las comunidades próximas a ellas. Y otro 40% fue dedicado a educación, no solo a las 2 escuelas secundarias que tiene Tenaris, una en Argentina y una en México, sino a todo el proceso educativo que hay en nuestras comunidades. Sí, se han fortalecido escuelas secundarias, primarias y universidades en todas las zonas próximas a donde están nuestras plantas. Como les dije anteriormente, todo esto está bajo un gran paraguas de lo que nosotros llamamos transparencia, con códigos de conducta, tanto para personal propio como para personal contratado, o sea, para nuestros proveedores, perdón. Y obviamente seguido a través de una oficina, ¿no?, que trata de contener todas estas situaciones. No queremos dejar de lado, por ello, el medio ambiente, altamente crítico hoy en día para nosotros, al igual que la seguridad, con alta participación en nuestras inversiones. Y tenemos lanzado un proyecto estratégico de descarbonización con un objetivo hacia el año 2030 de una reducción del 30% de la intensidad de CO2 por cada tonelada de hierro que se fabrique. Ello llevándolo adelante a través del incremento del uso del scrap para nosotros, clean electricity, utilización de hidrógeno verde, como así también la reutilización de productos. Básicamente, fuertemente en la parte ambiental, lo que estamos aplicando son las tecnologías, las mejores tecnologías que están a nuestro alcance, no solo en el ámbito local, sino que obviamente alrededor del mundo, y bueno, muchos de ellos que estamos hoy aquí para mejorar una de nuestras actividades, que es la que posteriormente vamos a ver de scrap. Entonces, no me quiero extender más que ello, quería que conocieran un poco lo que es Tenaris alrededor del mundo, y ahora introducirnos en nuestro proceso de recolección de chatarra y procesamiento de chatarra en nuestra planta de scrap que tenemos aquí en Campana, en Argentina. En nuestra planta hemos capturado en los últimos 5 años alrededor de 1,7 millones de toneladas que hemos procesado en diferentes estadios, ¿no? Tenemos un proceso de cizalla, donde se recorta la chatarra para enviarla posteriormente a la acería, también un proceso de oxicorte, un proceso de molienda, que es el que vamos a ver ahora posteriormente, y hay cierto material que previamente seleccionado se introduce directamente a nuestra acería. Para ello contamos con centros de almacenaje en el país, o sea, uno los tenemos acá en la ciudad de Córdoba, en la provincia de Buenos Aires, perdón, y 2 centros de procesamiento, uno acá en Campana, como bien dicho, otro en Córdoba, donde captamos material chatarra de 115 proveedores aproximadamente. Todo este proceso básicamente contribuye a tener una comunidad limpia por el proceso de captación de chatarra en diferentes lugares, y básicamente está asociado a esto a la reducción en el consumo de recursos que tenemos asociado. Tengamos en cuenta que por cada tonelada de chatarra que reutilicemos, tenemos un ahorro aproximado del 75% en recursos, llamémoslo gas, electricidad, como otros elementos que utilizamos en la acería a la hora de producir acero. ¿Dónde conseguimos nosotros nuestra chatarra? Bueno, básicamente el proceso comienza con la recolección 24 horas los 7 días de la semana, tanto sea por lugares, o sea, yard de almacenamiento propiamente de chatarra, como así en el servicio de industrias. La industria metalúrgica, la industria del petróleo, la minería y automotriz. También así trabajamos en un proceso de destrucción de partes que llevan traceability en empresas, garantizando la total destrucción de las mismas para evitar competencia. Y básicamente también tenemos un centro de compactación y finalmente destrucción de vehículos, ya sea vehículos antiguos como vehículos que están fuera de utilización.
To this, as I mentioned before, our plant has different processes. There's material that is selected and it goes directly to the steel. There's an cutting to dimensioning that scrap, and then it's selected and it's go to the steel shop. This cutting process, and the most important one is the mill or shredder machine, where we have a different type of material. 80% of that material that we process at the shredder is light material without dimension. 12% is vehicle, 5.7 vehicles are bundled packages, compacted material that could have come from different sources. We have new material that comes from the automobile sector, and the small one that could be still cheap for grinding. These, when we're talking about material that comes from abroad. We also process all the process that is of our plant, that is the tube pipelines manufacturer, different plants that we have in Argentina and other locations. The process, as you can see in the graph, it starts with the scrap load or the shredder machine. After going through the mill, it goes through magnetic separators, and it's divided in two lines. One line, it's all what is ferrous material that we call the redder, and that's going to be the material that is going to go to be melted, and then it will be reused to manufacture bars that will be then end up being pipelines. The second part is the fluff, which is the industrial waste that we need to treat, and is comprised by all that is not ferrous and that ended up in there. This material, of course, this fluff is going to have different composition according to the material that enter into the shredder. And then after different processes that we've been working until now, different suppliers to reuse that fluff, the better one was to separate it in the dimension, more than 20 mLs or less than 20 mm. So what we have, industrially speaking, we could use that material that is higher than 20 mm. So having a mix of these two processes that we have, the material that enter to our, we can see that more than 60% was light, less than 20 mm, and 40% is higher than 20 mm. And from that composition, higher than 20 mm, we can see this, that about a 10% is non-ferrous, a 20% is comprised by humidity, because the shredder that we have is a shredder that it's of wet process. During the process, inside the mill, we add water to control the temperature that is generated in the process. Also, there is 6% of wood and 56% plastic. So we're showing this because from this material, we want to find applications to it. So we know that in the different tests that we've been conducting is more or less distributed in these percentages. And of course, it's been sent to the landfill, and the idea is that these 16,000 tons per year that are generating this fluff to be able to use it in different alternatives, and to include it, or what we call a circular economy. So what have we done until now? Basically, one of the options that we've been managing is the use of this material inside in the cement clings as an alternative for fuel. Basically, the problem that we have in that use is the high percentage of ferrous material that oftentimes that we have in the fluff, and the humidity content. As I mentioned, the humidity comes from the process of the shredder. Sometimes it's stored and on the outside, and then the humidity increased. At least cement companies do not accept it directly for the use as a fuel because of that. After that, what we're trying to do is a manual separation and characterization, trying to separate the non-ferrous elements and the ones from big dimensions for the sub-use of them. And of course, because of the volume that is produced of this fluff that has been very complicated, we know there are processes that would allow us to separate this, and the idea is that once these process is defined, we can actually find applications. And finally, all the processes that we're working on, and this is more is to use the fluff has in steel mill to briquette, to manufacturing, for fuel in the furnaces that we have. So that's why, what is the expectations that we have with all these process? Basically, to find a technical and economical solution that allows us to recover all this material that we have within the fluff, to be able to put it into a circular economy using an alternative for the reuse of land material. We know that it's possible. And also the most important thing that we want to account is to minimize the final disposal of fluff that today is as a waste. Today, of course, we are involved with sustainable development goals. We know that this process of innovation process applies to that. We have also want to have also responsible consumption and production, and also we are committed towards the climate change. So basically what we want is technology to be able to separate the different components that the fluff has, and also alternative ferrous material. It's less amount, and it will go back to the production process. The rest of the elements, the material, to find a solution application for different industries. I think that's I would like to know the presentation was clear, but basically that's the challenge, and to share and to see what alternatives we can actually find together.
Great. Thank you very much, Gabriel. That was very interesting. I will now open up the floor to all of our attendees. If you have a question, please feel free to write it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or raise your hand to ask out loud. We do have one person with their hand raised. So Enrique, would you like to ask your question? You can unmute yourself. Yes, we can. Yeah, you can say it in Spanish. I believe we have translation services for everyone else, so please go ahead.
Gabriel, good afternoon. I'm Enrique Vergara. I'm from Mexico. I live in Calgary. We're dedicated to the clean tech technology. We have a solution for your problem. However, the amount that you produce is 12,000 tons per year. It's small for us. We need a higher amount to be able to have a proper solution to the problems that you have right now of scrap in Argentina. We have a solution for sure with the Calgary technology that transforms any waste. We don't have a problem of collecting of the waste that you have and transforming something useful. The idea is, could you increase the amount of fluff? So these 16,000 tons that I mentioned, they fluctuate a lot, of course, depending on the production that we have. And we use scrap or ferrous material. Today, the situation is improving a lot, and we can increase a little bit that amount of the production. I don't know what would be a good number for you. Probably in the last years, it could improve. I don't know what value would be a limit for you. 7,000 tons per year would be the minimum. Say that again. To be able to process, we would need about 7,000 tons per year. But we can include plastic, scrap, construction material. It doesn't matter. Our technology, basically, it's everything. We can increase the volume. We take into account other companies. I would like to share the conversation with Alejandro Volpini, that is the responsible for CRAP. Yes, Ali, we mentioned that is. It's a little bit, would be a little bit complicated for in our case alone, but there are other companies that have the same problem. Maybe we can cluster all that scrap, and we need to look for additional people that would need that. But we alone cannot reach that number that you need. Even without those variables that you mentioned that you need, we can find. Yeah, I can send information for you to study it. But we do have a solution for your problem, for sure. Thanks a lot. Perfect, perfect. Great.
Thank you, Enrique. Please make sure to apply to the challenge itself, so that we can convey the information to Tenaris, and also see if there is also more room for other requirements similar to this.
Yes, I will follow the instructions and I will apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Enrique, for your question.
Thank you very much. We have a few questions coming in from the Q&A function here. A question about the energy content of the material. It was stated at 13,450, I believe that's megajoules per kilogram. Is this HHV or LHV?
Yes. Perdón, no sé qué es HHV o LHV.
I don't know what HHV or LHV is. Could you please?
Higher heating value or lower heating value?
La capacidad calorífica, superior o inferior.
No, lo tengo identificado como ese valor, pero lo averiguamos.
We will find that. I'm not sure. I will take note of that and let you know.
Thank you. We also have a question about what the percentage of PVC is in the plastic.
¿De PVC? ¿Cuánto de PVC es el porcentaje de PVC dentro del plástico? No, no lo hemos abierto eso.
We don't have that. We have to include that in the analysis. So right now we are working on a new classification of the material. So we're going to ask for that as well.
Okay, we can follow up with that. Thank you. And we have a question about what the current cost of disposal is for the fluff at the moment.
Costo, no el costo. $38 por tonelada.
$38 per ton. Yeah, it's $38 per ton. That disposal cost. That would be among the fleet that we pay the transportation and final disposition would be 38 USD per ton.
Thank you. And is it possible for applying companies to get a sample of the fluff? Is it sterile?
O sea, el fluff para nosotros está considerado como un residuo industrial para la ley argentina.
Fluff is an industrial waste for the Argentinian law. It's not a hazardous material. And the samples, it will be difficult to get a sample, maybe a lab sample will be used. So inside Argentina, I think it's easy to move it inside Argentina, any sample. I think it'll be possible, yes.
Great.
No sé el tamaño que está necesitando, consultando.
I don't know the size exactly, but it would be interesting to know what type of sample you need.
Kieran, would you like to elaborate on the size of the sample needed?
Perdón, ¿me preguntas a nosotros o yo justamente preguntaba eso, digamos, el tamaño que necesita la muestra?
So we have 2 liters would be the size needed.
Habría que verlo, pero creería que a 2 litros sí se puede enviar.
Yeah, I think 2 liters. Yeah, I think that could be sent for sure.
No es fácil, pero
Great.
Not, I don't think it's that easy, but I think, yeah, we can send that.
Excellent. Do you have an estimate of the ash content of the fluff material?
Sí, sí, me esperan un minutito. Ya
Yes, just give me a second. I will share the report. 68% ash.
68%.
I have a question on behalf of some of the applicants. If a company has a technology that would treat some of the fluff, like one constituent, and they have the ability to separate it, would that be of interest to you? And whether that's metal
Sí,
or
sí,
perhaps they
nosotros
can deal
justamente
with
lo que les
plastic.
mostraba antes, estamos
Yes.
justamente viendo con algunas empresas.
Yeah, we've seen with some companies the separation as well. Yeah, for us it's important to be able to separate it, of course, and then try to find a solution to that we separate. But yes, I think it's useful. That'll be useful. If we can, yeah, that would be great. If you can help us also afterwards to find how to use that separation materials found, it would be great.
Gracias.
And it seems we have a follow-up to the previous question about the percentage of ash. Is the 68%, is that it's, we have a comment that seems too high. Is that something that's can be explained? Or?
Obviamente, bueno, como les dije, varía bastante.
See, as I mentioned, the composition varies of the fluff according to the material. It's a mixed based on the material. So right now we have a sequence of a couple of samples per month. But of course, according to what it gets in, sometimes it has a lot of textile or some type of a scrap that makes that volume to go up. But that's the last classification of the material that we obtain in the mix.
I think we should perhaps clarify. I think what Peter is looking for there when he says ash is if all of the material is completely combusted, what is the solid residue? The non-combustible.
So let me go back in my slide. Just bear with me. Just going back to the slide where we talk about the composition. So this is the composition of the fluff. So we have ash, we have wood, or we have the plastic, and non-ferrous and ferrous. Most of it that it's been burned in the sample is a 56% plastic. Textile 25%, 56% plastic and wood.
So yeah, the ash content is likely to be 12% of being the metal plus a little bit of residual from the wood and textile, at a guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're right.
Peter, hopefully that answers your question. If you'd like to elaborate, please go ahead. And on that note, I will give a last call for any questions. Please feel free to type it out into the Q&A box or raise your hand at this time. Otherwise, I believe that is all the questions we have for today. Oh, one or a couple more just came in. One more question for Peter. So that works for him. Can you use a carbon black in your process?
Perdón, en el proceso que de trituración, digamos que
Which process? To include carbon black in the milling process? When we are milling, we're in scrapping all that? Is that the question?
No, yo creo que se refieren al proceso metalúrgico como tal. Si ustedes pueden usar carbón negro dentro del proceso.
So I think they're talking about the metallurgic and the production. So let me see, one of the things that we're working is the manufacturing of these briquettes. And part of that briquettes and to wants to use some of that black carbon. So yeah, to give a lot more
Lorena, you had your hand up to elaborate.
Yes, hello, Shaz. I want to mention that, yes, as Gabriel mentioned, we use coal in our process, not a huge amount, due that we have electrical furnace. And so we are using a few, and the test that we performed was for fine material to use it as an injected carbon. So that are the tests that we developed. And on the other hand, for sure, we have other facilities with fluff. So as mentioned before, we can consolidate a quantity that could be interesting from other facilities. So that it's good for the first person that performed that question. So if this company can share with you the treatment, the process that they have, we can analyze it further for our facilities. Then on the energy content is HHB, so it's high. And I don't know, it was another question regarding the process. And the test for the part of the ash, yes, is combusted. All the material is combusted, and that is the result of the test laboratory analysis.
Thank you, Lorena.
Thank you.
So I think Peter's elaborating that his company creates a pure carbon black in his process. Would you have a market for this pure carbon? So I'm not sure if that helps the answer.
Perdón, no entendí. O sea, nosotros el carbón lo utilizamos como parte del proceso de cacería.
Well, the carbon process, we use it.
Yeah, I think what's happening is that like the solution that the Peter's company has produces black carbon, and they are asking if Tenaris has a market for that black carbon, which is something that Gabriel just mentioned some minutes ago, saying that they use a small amount of carbon. It would be a matter of seeing how much black carbon does Peter's solution produce, and if that would be enough to offset what Tenaris is already using for their steel producing process. If it is much more than they would require, they might need to look for a secondary market for the black carbon produced. But that would be kind of an issue of how much would it be produced. Gabriel, please let me know if I am overstepping or saying more than I should.
Deberíamos saber, entender por lo menos.
We should understand that with this volume that we have of fluff, one amount of carbon could be generated, and then we can confirm how used. We are producing, we have a capacity to produce about 800,000 tons per year of steel, working full house. So you can imagine the carbon use is high, but I don't know the transformation capacity of this fluff into carbon. Knowing that volume, we can tell if we use it all, or we'll have some not carbon not used.
Yeah, I think it's highly likely that the production of carbon is not enough to offset your carbon needs. It's just for Peter's knowledge.
Great, thank you very much. We have one question. Does Tenaris make PEX?
Disculpen, ¿no?
What is PEX? What is PEX?
If anyone would like to elaborate on this question.
I think that's cross-linked polyethylene in
Creo que
my,
es polietileno.
in my terminology.
En mi terminología, creo que es polietileno, tipo polietileno.
Maybe Karen, if you could.
No, si es polietileno, no. Nosotros, básicamente, la industria nuestra es
So
acero.
our industry is steel. So we manufacture steel with welded and seamless. That's what we do. So we don't have anything related with PEX. We use plastic, but it's not that we manufacture any type of PX.
Yeah, the household water pipe, that's polyethylene, so that's plastic. That's not Tenaris's business.
Okay. Okay, hope that answers your question, Kieran. Okay, second final call. Oh, Enrique, do you have your hand up again for another question, or was that from previous?
Sorry, was from my previous question.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much to Tenaris for that presentation. Very interesting. Thank you to Juan Pablo and Anna for your presentations as well. I will post a link in the group right now to the chat. This is the link to the Tenaris Challenge webpage. This has more information about the challenge details. It has webinar request emails, and it also has the application form on this website. So please visit us there if you'd like to learn more and submit your application. I've also placed an sdgconnect@foresight.com email address. If you have any further questions, please reach out to us there and we can get those answers for you. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Hopefully it was very educational for you all, and thank you again to all of our panelists. We appreciate you giving us your time. Thank you all.